And we should be live. I'm just gonna give it a minute until I can see the number. Hopefully you are already able to hear me. If anyone was completely new to me, if you've just clicked on this video in the next few weeks or months, it is a live stream, but we've got 10 minutes though. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. So if you wanted to skip the hellos, you could go straight into the tour. And yeah, you could skip the next 10 minutes. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me properly. So I see the numbers now, so we should be live. Welcome everyone. It is nearly 9 p.m. UK time on this beautiful summer day in Dover, Kent. Let me know in the chat if the sound is good, if you can hear me properly. You can hear me, perfect, lovely. Thank you, Tish. So we've got about 10 minutes before to start. So we've got time to get to know each other in the chat. Loud and clear, perfect, thank you, Matthew. It is very quiet on the seaside now. It was a bit busy earlier. But when I go outside of London, the later the better, because of signal, you know, because I never know if I'm going to get a good signal. So the quieter it is on the streets, the better it is for signal. And also the better it is for you if you happen to be on the west coast of America, then it's not too early. Welcome, Sarah. Welcome, I think I've seen Mark as well. Welcome everyone that just joined. Hi, Suzanne. So we've got a few minutes before to start. Dover has one of the best castles ever. Yes, absolutely, Emma. And it's probably actually the best ever now to visit because English Heritage has spent quite a lot of money recreating the interior as it could have been. It's just a guess, obviously we don't know. But I've not had time to visit. I've only been here for about 4 hours. I do definitely need to come back. I didn't have enough time to do that today because I had to prepare the route. But yeah, I think I do need to come back and visit the castle. Hi Nikki, nice to see you here. So we've got, let me check, I think we've got 9 minutes to start. So again, if any of you were watching the replay in the next few days and you wanted to skip the hellos, you can skip the next 9 minutes. And welcome, Gwen. Let us know in the chat if you've ever been to Dover. Hi, Leonie. Nice to see you here. I was not far from you on the train earlier. So the background is really white, so it's difficult for me to read the chat. Hi Natasha, nice to see you here. Let me flip around the camera so you can get... it didn't work. So the sun has just set. Well, it's hidden behind the cliffs there. You have been to Dover, nice. Well, technically so have I, but every time I've been here it was to jump on the ferry or to jump on the tunnel. I did not ever explore. So that's the ferry port straight ahead. Oh, there's a ferry that just left. I didn't see it go, but it's just disappeared from the skyline. So there's a ferry that just left. So we are just above 20 miles away from France. And apparently, I probably looked very stupid on the streets today, but I read online that sometimes when you are in Dover, your phone can get confused and go into the French time zone. And I was a bit paranoid that it would happen to me because I didn't want to miss my own tour by being on the French time zone. And so every so often in the afternoon, I Googled verbally on my phone. I was like, hey, what time is it in London? Just to check that I was on the right time zone. People on the street must have thought I was so dumb to be asking what time it is in London when clearly it's the same time. But I was just worried that my phone would think I'm in France. You went in the tunnel. Oh, sorry, I've missed the message. Yeah. Yeah, I've done the tunnel. I think I've done the tunnel only a couple of times when I was on the megabus. For the ones that don't know, the tunnel, you don't drive, and it's like you put the coach or the vehicle on a train anyway. Oh, you mean the tunnels under the castle? I thought you meant the tunnel under the English Channel. Although I don't like to call it the English Channel. Why would it be English? It's called La Manche. Hi, Barbara. Welcome everyone that I did not greet. And Diane is here. Nice to see you, Diane from Florida. And yeah, I've been on the ferry maybe a couple of times. I don't really, because that's, I might come down this way if I went to Paris, but I don't really go to Paris anyway. So it's not a route I take very often. Not the Eurotunnel. No, we've got tunnels under the castle, but I don't want to tell you too much about that quite yet.
Yes, but I'll
there's also a Victorian tunnel. Would you believe the Victorians, they had tried to do a tunnel under the English Channel? They invested, they started on everything, and then in 1882 they got cold feet and they cancelled it because they were worried. They thought, for many, many years, those, the channel would have protected Britain against invasions. So they thought, oh, hold on, if we have a tunnel, we might have invaders. So they actually cancelled the plans. And eventually we had one much more recently. Yeah, the cars, I don't even know how we can hear them from here. It's far away, but yeah. We've got someone trying to steal a vehicle, it looks like. Yeah, I think you can still see the entrance of the Victorian tunnel somewhere. Yeah, that car keeps going. I didn't know whether you'll be able to hear that with the microphone, but yeah. And welcome Pam from Toronto. So we still have a few minutes to go. 5 minutes. Let me flip this camera around. So straight ahead, that's the terminals for the ferry. And behind me, that's the terminal for the cruises. That's why I'm here. I'm picking up a big group tomorrow. They're on a cruise, they're from Canada. Somehow, they're not coming into the cruise terminal though. They're coming through that building there. It's the cargo terminal. I don't know why they're arriving there, so I'll probably be there with my sign in the middle of the watermelons from Spain or whatever. So I don't know why they're arriving with the cargo, but yeah. That's the alarm for me crossing the Kent border. Well, then the alarm should have been earlier, Leonie. I've been here a few hours. Yes, invaders, yes, Mark. Actually, you know what, that's probably why a lot of people kind of skip Dover as a day trip. It's officially the most dangerous place in Kent. And also because we are bombarded on the news about, messages about small boats and illegal immigration coming into Dover. So people often prefer to go for a day out in Margate or wherever else in Kent. But yeah. It's human cargo, yes, exactly. And Lethargy is here. Nice to see you here. Oh, you don't have to work today, Pam. Perfect. So we've got about 4 minutes to go. And it's the perfect time with this pinky sky. Well, it looked quite beautiful earlier as well, but it was a bit busy. A lot of people were swimming or doing some water sports. So this is Dover Beach here. All right, let me see how long we've got. 2 minutes, 2 minutes to start. You can't believe how still is the water. Well, you know, Tish, we don't have much waves here because well, you've got piers on both sides, you know. I think if you went down to Shakespeare's Beach, which is on that side, it's probably a bit wavier. I've not had time to go. It's called Shakespeare's Beach because it was mentioned in King's Lear, the Shakespeare's play. Although I'm not sure I'll you know, if I have to choose an area to come for a day out and go swimming, I probably wouldn't choose Dover because it's just in between ports, you know, so I don't know about the quality of the water, but yeah. Right, let me check the time. 1 minute to go. What sport is that, Natasha? Is that baseball? Is that American football? I don't even know who they are. Let me see. And it is officially time to start. It is 9 p.m. UK time, so let's get started. So for the ones that don't know me, I'm Natalie. I'll take you for a little live walk of Dover, where I'll tell you some interesting stories about ghosts and murders and whatever it might be. Right, let me flip this camera around and let's go. So straight ahead, those are the famous white cliffs of Dover. It's probably, you know, when you were a seaman. I don't like saying the term seaman because I don't know how to tell the difference between seaman and seaman, you know, the white liquid, and the sailors. So I suppose when you were a British sailor and you were looking to come back home, when you saw the white cliffs of Dover, you knew you were arriving. And on top of the cliffs there, you might see the castle. So Dover Castle, I know it might seem like a very British castle. Actually, it's a very French castle. They have some very similar ones or very similar towers on the Loire Valley. And the gentleman that had it built was Henry II. He was the first king of the Plantagenet, and he was very French indeed. Although he was the king here, he lived in France. He lived in Chinon on the Loire Valley. He's buried there with his son Richard the Lionheart. And Dover Castle was not actually built to protect from the French. It was built to welcome them. What happened is that, well, at the time, you know, we are at the time of the murder of Thomas Becket. For the ones that don't know, I'm not going to tell you the full story because that's a long story, but basically Henry II was very good friend with the Archbishop of Canterbury, and they fell out because basically the king could not change the Archbishop's mind on something. And eventually one evening the king said, who's gonna get rid of this archbishop for me, or this rebel priest, or whatever he said. Apparently he was joking. Well, that's what he claimed, but some of his knights took him seriously. They got to Canterbury, they got into the cathedral, and they very, very brutally murdered Thomas Becket. So he very quickly became a martyr. He was a Catholic martyr, so that's why people used to, you know, Canterbury then became such a touristic medieval destination. You know, people came from pilgrimage from all across Catholic Europe, and they would often arrive here. They'll start here. There was a big priory here, and then they'll go on their way to see the shrine of Thomas Becket. Now, the King of France at the time, Louis VII, he had his son Philip that was very unwell. So you know, the shrine of the Archbishop was meant to give you miracles. So the King of France decided to, when I say the King of France, France at the time was quite small. Henry II was actually the king of most of France. He was the king of Aquitaine and Anjou and Britain at the same time. But the realm of France at the time was quite small, and Louis VII decided. He came pretty much unannounced. He decided to come last minute to try to pray for his poorly son. And at the time, Henry II was massively embarrassed because on this very beach here, the King of France arrived, and Henry II did not have anywhere to give him a royal welcome. You know, he just didn't have anywhere to stay, so they had to go. They had to go straight inland to welcome him elsewhere. And that was so embarrassing because really that was the first ever royal state visit. We have one tomorrow, by the way. We have the Japanese emperor and empress tomorrow coming into London. It's going to be interesting for me trying to show Buckingham Palace to my group. So anyway, that was the first royal state visit, and that was so embarrassing for Henry II that he decided to commission this beautiful palace. So he would then have a place to welcome those monarchs that might want to come and visit in the future. So it was, well, they started the construction then, but then different bits were added later on. One of them is the Peverell Tower. I've not been, but it is my favorite. Let me excuse my finger, I'll show you. I think it's that little one straight, not the keep, but the little one before that. The Peverell Tower was added later on under the reign of Henry III. And guess what? It is haunted. Now, you can actually come and stay in that tower. English Heritage is renting it. It's a little cottage. I think I've got a photo. Let me show you an image. Where are we? There we go. So that's the Peverell Tower there. So you could come and stay. It's I think it's £560 a night minimum. It might be a bit more expensive in the summer. But apparently there's the ghost of a lady. Now we've got no evidence of that, but it is said that when they were building it, the tower kept falling down, and the workmen, instead of reconsidering their building qualities and technique, they decided that it was probably bad luck. And at the time, well, we probably spoke about that in my tours of, where did we spoke about immurement? Oh, at the London Bridge. We might have spoken about immurement in the past. So they believed that if they placed an animal or a human into the walls or into the foundations of a building, that would protect the building against all the misfortunes. Well, it is said that after the tower fell down several times through the building work, they literally kidnapped a lady and her dog, and they literally immured them. So mur is French for wall. So immurement, it is to put someone or somebody into a wall. That's what we suspect might have happened under the London Bridge as well. So yeah, poor doggy and poor lady. And they were alive. Often they would do that with animals that were already dead, but no, they were alive according to legend. We don't know for sure. Obviously, English heritage has not gone to destroy the building to look for the skeleton of a lady. But yeah, it is said that a lady might have been immured in the tower, and it might be the ghost of that very lady still haunting the building today. Who knows? The inside of the castle is absolutely beautiful. I've not been. I do have to come back. Let me show you what they've done in the inside. They've painted everything and recreated. They recreated an interior as it might have been in the 13th century. It's obviously just guessing. They don't know for sure what it would have looked like, but the colors are very vivid, almost like kindergarten's colors. But apparently at the time that was the type of paintings and colors they would have had in their interior. And so we're talking very primary colors, you know, blue, yellow, red, sometimes even green. But yeah, they spent, I think it's 2.5 million English heritage, but 2009, I think that was when they did that. So it's, you know, it's because when you go and visit, I don't know, the Tower of London or well, even Windsor Castle to an extent, the inside doesn't look like it would have looked at the time, you know, because all we see today is stones and it's very cold and very big. Once you see it back with the tapestry and all those vivid colors, it looks very different. So it's a place that I do recommend visiting. Anyway, little memorial here. So the castle was also used through the Second World War. This is a monument for the soldiers that were rescued from Dunkirk. So that's Operation Dynamo. So let me explain. Well, the tunnels under the castles were actually dug even more in Napoleonic times. You know, when they were worried that Napoleon might invade, they enlarged those tunnels. There's another ghost, by the way. We don't know whether there's any truth behind it, but apparently there's the ghost of a drummer boy, a teenage boy that was playing drums, that was somehow murdered and beheaded by 2 soldiers on the tunnels. And some claim that they can still hear some random drums today. We'll never know. Anyway, Operation Dynamo, that was through the Second World War. So Dover Castle actually played a massive role in the war. So it's from those tunnels that the war effort was organizing the rescue of over 300,000 soldiers from Dunkirk. Militarily, it was a bit of a shame to have to go and get your soldiers back, but that massively helped, because then those guys could be reused and sent through the Normandy landings later on. And the Normandy landings, of course, they did not go from here, and they did not go to Calais, but that was very, very smart of the British Army. What they did is that from those tunnels under Dover Castle, they were sending some fake radio messages, trying to confuse the Nazis. So they were pretending they knew that the Nazis might get some of those messages, and they had some spies to verify that that actually worked. So they were sending messages trying to plot an invasion, a landing somewhere in Pas-de-Calais. So they wanted the German to believe that the troops would leave from here, from Dover, and they would go somewhere in Pas-de-Calais, so anywhere around Calais, which was actually completely wrong. They left from, Portsmouth, and they ended up in Normandy, so miles away. So they purposely wanted to confuse the Nazis, and it worked. So it's thanks to that operation from here that D-Day was such a success, and that eventually France was freed and the war was won. So, you know, Dover had a little role to play. Now, straight ahead, that's as we mentioned earlier, that's the ferry terminal, one of the busiest ferry terminals in the world, really. And it's not new. It started with those steamboats in the late 18th century, really. So when you think about, for example, you might think about Mary Shelley, you know, the author of Frankenstein. Well, she did board one of those steam ferry from here to go with Percy Shelley and Claire Claremont. They went to France and then Switzerland, where they had an interesting ménage à trois. So yeah, the ferry port is not that new. Hi Linda, welcome. Perfect timing. Now, we had a couple of murders and dark tales here as well. Dover was a massive hub for smugglers, you know, back in the day, especially under the reign of Charles II and later on through the Napoleonic Wars. A lot of people were trying to import some illegal goods. To give you an idea, at the time of, in the 17th century, 2/3 of the tea drunk in this country was actually smuggled. And full communities would get involved. It's not only the smugglers themselves, because people would sell the goods and everyone was benefiting from it. So the authorities were actually struggling to fight it. And actually some of the costume officers were let's say accomplices with the smugglers. There's a story that's quite fun actually. There were two gangs here, the Blues and the Aldington gangs of smugglers in the 18th century. And apparently the Aldington gang, they had a costume officer that used to work with them and that betrayed them or let them down, and they wanted to punish him. So they got him handcuffed or hands tied in his back. They blindfolded him. They attached his leg to a rope, and they dropped him at the top of the cliffs there. So they let him hang from his feet, scaring the hell out of him. And eventually, somehow his blindfolding stuff moved, and he realized he was not hanging from the cliffs. He was hanging in the little choke pit. He was only 2 feet away from the ground. So he survived. They didn't kill him, but yeah, they knew how to have a little revenge on the taxman. And after the Napoleonic Wars, the government had a bit more money and a bit more men to put into the revenue services. You know, they didn't need that many soldiers anymore. So then smuggling kind of went down. Actually, just before the end of smuggling, in I think it's 1832, no, 1812, I think it was. There was a gang that managed to bring in a lot of tea, and they were selling it away. And then there's a guy that was a highwayman working for the same gang. There were a lot of highwaymen around here. Again, that pretty much stopped in 1829 when the police was created, because then you had the Metropolitan Police on horseback. But it is said that one of those highwaymen was caught, and he was sent to there was a bit of a prison at the castle at the time before to go back to another prison elsewhere. And the men were actually bringing him to the prison on top of the, at the castle there. And he managed to escape, because we had at the time those, the samphire, the plant. It's like a salty plant that grows on the cliffs. So you had those men that were kind of abseiling down the cliffs to get the plant. The one we eat is actually called salicornia in Latin, but it's a samphire plant. So those men were like abseiling down the cliff to get the plant, and apparently the guy managed to escape and went down their ropes, and he escaped down the cliffs. Yeah, samphire, yeah. It's, I don't know if we still eat it very much around here, but they do eat it still in Brittany. Anyway, I'm gonna have to find a place to cross over here. And those highwaymen, of course, they were sometimes placed into a gibbet up there as well. So the gibbets, they were those sorry, let me cross. Those cages in which they'll place the dead bodies. But for them, it was a massive punishment to be placed into a gibbet, because, you know, at the time they believed that if they were not buried properly, their bodies would not be able to reach heaven. So they believed that if their dead bodies were placed in a gibbet to be exposed as a deterrent, their souls would be confused and they wouldn't be able to find the way to heaven. So that's why for them it was such a punishment, really. Anyway, let me show you this gentleman here. It's a seaman as well, a sailor. Is Captain Matthew Webb. Captain Matthew Webb was the first gentleman that swam all the way to France. 21 hours he swam in 1875 all the way to Calais, and that was a very Victorian crossing. He swam, but he had 3 little boats following him just to make sure he was okay and stuff. Jellyfish, would you believe? They gave him a glass of brandy, a very Victorian cure. So he was swimming, but not completely alone, you know. And he actually made it. Can I please deterrent? For them it was a huge punishment, because they were worried that their souls might not be able to go to heaven. At the time they believed that you were going to be able to go to heaven only if your body was buried properly. Yeah, it's like a weird cage. It was actually very, very expensive, because those cages were made by the ironmonger on demand. And usually the prisoner the dead had to pay for it anyway, if they had any money. So we've got quite a few statues here. I think that's an officer from the Navy, to remember all the Navy officer that lost their life. And the next one, it's the gentleman that did the first channel crossing on an airplane. I think it's 1909 or 1910. So he went from Calais to here. Somewhere on the cliffs up there, there's actually a marking on the floor of where he landed. Your dream, a custom-made gibbet. Well, I think that could be our range, Tish. It's probably not everybody's dream, but hey ho. Anyway, about murders, there was another incident here on the beach as well. You know those smugglers? They were they didn't work alone. You know, it was a full network of smuggling. And one night, some of them were here on the beach here, trying to bring some of the goods illegally. You'd have to imagine. So that's the beginning of Victorian times. Even before that, I think, beginning of the 19th century, you had all those bathing machines. You know, those kind of wooden kiosks that were drawn behind horses to help the ladies swim. And some of the smugglers were actually bringing the goods when 2 costume officers spotted them, and one shot his gun. Now, at the beginning of the 19th century, you could still be hanged for quite a lot of crimes. So, you know, if you got caught for smuggling and you might be hanged, well, you might as well kill the tax officer, you know, the revenue man. We talked about that in Skegness, because in Skegness, you know, in a hotel, they found the remains of a tax officer. Well, that's pretty much what happened here. The tax officer, the costume man, actually fired his gun, probably to alert his colleague that something was going on. And one of the smugglers shot him. Now, that revenue man was actually a very popular guy in his community. He died. He was buried here. And the authorities offered a huge reward of £500 on who would give information on who were the smugglers and who shot the revenue man, Richard. And actually somebody did snitch. So they actually, the authorities were aware, and they went and arrested 19 smugglers, including the guy that fired. So that one was hanged. And the guy that snitched, the community hated him. They hated him so much that ladies, apparently, the ladies of the town were burning effigies of him. And apparently he couldn't go to the barbers in case the barber was tempted to slit his throat. So his life in Dover was over. Yeah, Natasha, £500, but at the time it would have been a huge amount of money. Huge compared to what it is today. And if we went straight ahead, we're not going to go down that way because we're going to take a right and go into the town center. But if we kept going, there's an avenue there called Snargate Street. Well, it was also the site of a terrific double murder. Let me show you the swimmers. I guess that's probably also in honor of all those people that swam the channel. Matthew Webb was the first one, but then you had many ever since. Anyway, number 149 Snargate Street. We're not gonna go all the way because there's not much to see today. The building was destroyed. It was an accommodation where a horrible double murder happened in 1936. There was a lady that lived there. Her name was Gladys Varley. She had 5 children. The 2 bigger ones, though, they had been given to the Barnardo's children homes. The third one, the little girl, was still with her, and she had 2 twins. The two bigger kids, she had them with her husband. The husband was no longer with her because he was jailed for bastardy. Yes, you've heard this one, right? Bastardy. That made me smile when I read it, because honestly, I had no idea that in 1936 you could still be jailed for bastardy. If you don't know what bastardy is, it's, well, from the 18th century, they did have a law that stated that if you had a bastard child and you didn't want to take care of them, you might have to pay to the local authorities, the parish. You might have to pay a fine. But in reality, that very rarely happened because, well, how do you prove that someone is the father, you know, before DNA and all that? But apparently, with him, they managed to prove it. So he was jailed. That little monument, by the way, that's a memorial for the Indian forces that helped Britain through the First World War. So anyway, her husband is in prison for bastardy, and she's alone. And you know, we spoke about that back in the day. To be a lady alone, you could get some help, but you'd have to go into the workhouse and you'd have to commit yourself into staying there. There was some kind of outdoor relief, but that was not much. And she used to live with a flatmate that could help her take care of the little twins. So she had twins, babies, 5 months old. And she found another accommodation here on Narrated Street. So she left that lady, so she removed the twins from the care of that lady, Winfred. And eventually the lady was a bit worried that she had not seen the twins for a few days. She kept asking Gladys, "Oh, can I see the twins?" She's like, "No, they're sleeping." Or, "Oh, can I come in and see the twins?" "Oh, no, my new boyfriend is sleeping." And eventually, Winifred was really worried about the welfare of the little ones. Before we go much further, let me show you, there's a little plaque on the floor here for the pilgrims. So if you want to go to Rome, straight down right here. If you want to go to Canterbury, up there. So that's quite good. If I get lost, I know where to go. So yeah, the lady was a bit worried, and eventually Gladys got arrested for something completely unrelated, and the police asked her how many children she had. She said, "I've got 5, well, 2 big ones, they're gone in the orphanage. I've got my little girl, and I had twins, but I couldn't feed them and they died." And she actually confessed. They got to her place there when they found the two little ones in a suitcase. And sadly, there were evidence that they did not die of starvation. She had strangled them. The excuse that she gave is that she couldn't commit to go into the workhouse. She did not want to be locked up. So that's again a dramatic situation that we mentioned in some of my tours elsewhere, is that fear of the workhouse. So anyway, very sad story. Now, I'm gonna try not to say anything too interesting for the next 2 minutes, because we have to take this underpass. Now, the underpass itself is fascinating because they found something very interesting as they dug it up. But let's wait until we are on the other side, just in case we lose the signal for a second. So I'm just gonna do a chit chat for the next 2 minutes, and I'm not gonna say anything interesting in case, because I know when the signal drops and you lose some information, it can be a bit frustrating. So chit chat for now, and I'll tell you what they found here. They did the work in 1992, and when they dug up under the street, they found something amazing. I hope you can still hear me properly. If not, don't worry, we'll be out in a sec. Oh, let me show you. I saw a little plaque earlier that made me smile. I'll show you. I think it's here. There we go. £500 fine if you are drinking in the underpass. That's a bit over the top, if you ask me. Although I can understand why, if you are, you are a lonely, a single person alone at night, or a lady alone at night, and you walk through and you have a lot of drunken, semi-homeless people, you might not feel very comfortable. So it's probably best to stop people from drinking in there. But yeah, £500, it seems a bit much to me. Anyway, we are out, so the signal is fine. Cool. So let me know let me tell you what they found. So when they dug up, the workmen, to do the little tunnel, the little underpass, they found a big boat, a very large boat from the Bronze Age. Would you believe? It's the best preserved, oldest boat that we ever found in this country. It's about 3,500 years old. It is a rowing boat. There was no mast. But, it's so amazing. I'll show you, because I managed to get into the museum here before they closed, and I couldn't see anything else, but I went to see the boat. So that's the boat. So it had been sunk in a little river that no longer exists. But the amazing thing is that they found evidence that it was not sunk accidentally. It was sacrificed. somehow, so we're talking about, we way before the Romans and all that, somehow the Bronze Age people that lived on the British Isles at the time, they somehow had this idea of doing a sacrifice to the future. We all do it. We still do it today, You might see a fountain or a pond and you might drop a coin for good luck. But would you believe whoever owned that boat, an amazing boat that probably was used quite a lot for business or whatever they were doing, they somehow decided to get rid of it, to give it to the gods or to the future or to whatever they believed in. But that's amazing. They already had this idea that sometimes when you've got too much or when you've got enough, you need to sacrifice it. I think it's very interesting. And it is, so you can come and see it. This building here, it's a museum, it's free, and the boat is at the top floor. So very, very interesting. Now, let me show you a little plaque that I like. It's right here. Behind me is Gold Lane, or Old Gold Lane, I think it is. So that would have been the way to the old prison. So it is here that they had the punishment, stocks, pillory, whipping post, and cage. I wonder what you had to do to be in the pillory. Maybe helping the smugglers. Or maybe selling some of the goods of the smugglers. Talking about the smugglers, 1949, we already had rationing. There was a boat coming back from Asia that sank. That was actually a big issue here, wrecking. So we had, they have a lot of sand. There's a particular route that's a bit risky because of the Goodwin sand, where a lot of ships have sadly met their end. And some people actually were trying to push those ships into those sands to put them into difficulty, and then they might sink, and then they could go and steal the cargo. So it's called wrecking. The punishment for wrecking was quite bad. Anyway, 1949, there's a ship that was wrecked, and some of those wreckers, they actually went and steal some of the cargo. They stole a lot of tea. Now, we had the beginning of World War II. The tea was rationed, and they were illegally selling the tea. And the authorities started to make inquiries. Now, the wreckers panicked, and apparently they tried to get rid of the tea in their toilets. It wasn't here, it was in Deal, that's the next town. And the tea, when you put it in the loo or in water, it kind of swells. It gets a bit bigger. Just showing you the prices here if you wanted to buy in Dover. So they actually blocked all the toilet drains with tea, and that's how they got caught. So that's funny. Ooh, that's much cheaper than London. Look at that. You can have a full home freehold for 190,000. Oh, what was I saying? I think I was saying ships. Hold on, I'll show you. I know how to say it now. Ship. You go like a kiss. Ship. And if you want the animal, sheep. 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 I look a bit stupid, but I know how to pronounce it at least. And when I'm on camera, you don't see my face. So, ship, sheep. So I think I was talking about ships. Although there were a lot of sheep thieves as well here. If you stole a sheep, you probably would end up in a pillory anyway. Oh, you might be hanged as well, depending what period you stole a sheep. Anyway. This interesting building here, that used to be the Plaza Theatre, a movie theatre. Today it's a Wetherspoon's pub and a Subway. I went into the pub earlier to get to have a tea and go to the loo. Oh my God, I was impressed by the prices. You can have a pint for less than £3. You can have a pint of Dumbar for £2.10. that was the prices in London 8 years ago. I was amazed. Obviously, I didn't buy any beers because I had to do a tour, but I was amazed. It's the same chain, it's a Wetherspoons, but it's so much cheaper than London. Let me show you this beautiful little graveyard. You're still thinking about the tea stuffed in the toilet? Yeah, that's a silly way to get caught. But that's, you see a lot of people doing that with cocaine as well, or drugs, when they get caught. Anyway, the building behind me, the former theater, was also the site of a horrible murder. Will I take you for a pint? Well, I can't really take you for a pint in a pub because I'll have to ask permission to the pub and stuff. So I think it's a bit complicated to do a live in a pub. And also there's a lot of background noises in a pub. So not the best place to do a live, really. Oh, I forgot to show you. There's up there you see one of those sun quadrant. It's quite cool to see the time. So if I wanted to check I wasn't on French time, I could have checked that instead of asking Google. Anyway, the murder. So, 1941. There was a young man that worked as a manager in the theater, and he lived a bit outside of town. So he had the habit of actually sleeping in his office. He had a mat that he could roll up on the duvet, and he used to sleep in there. Everyone was aware of it. There was a night watch as well that would go around the theater at night, and that night, no one noticed anything out of the ordinary. The performance that night went fine. The night watch imagined that the manager was already asleep because he didn't hear anything odd that night. And the next morning, the manager did not bring the money to the bank, which was a bit unusual because at the time most people paid cash, so every day you'd have to bring the money into the bank. And then the cleaners came. The cleaners were on different shifts, so they didn't really get to chat to one another. Oh, we've got seagulls. Let's go and say hello. Hey, my friends. I think I've got peanuts. Do you want a peanut? Yeah. It was for the squirrels this morning, but hey, mate. Let's see if she wants one. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, it's for you. Ah! She got it. And back to murder. So nothing out of the ordinary, but the cleaners, when they came in the morning, they noticed a few funny things, as they said. One of them noticed that the key of the safe was on the floor. She put it back on the safe. Another cleaner noticed a dirty stain, a funny stain on the tiles on the floor. So she scrubbed it off. Another one, he was a bit surprised to find that on a window there was a frame on a little deco that had been moved, but again nothing that strange, and they didn't really talk to one another because they were doing different shifts. So that was it. And eventually another staff member much later on came into the office, and they were surprised that the manager wasn't there. But she opened the safe to find the float, for their day of work, and the float was gone. 32 pounds were missing. They found it very weird. At first, they imagined that maybe the manager ran away with the money, but he had a very good reputation. He was not the type of man that would do such thing. And then they found a hatchet, some kind of an axe. And then they started to think, this doesn't look good. And eventually they found the body. the poor manager had been brutally attacked. His body had been, it was still in the building, in the basement, in some kind of a little alcove. And the press, I mean, it was all over the press, all the way to London, and everyone talked about the murder. And people at the time, especially the press, believed it was going to be the first big murder mystery in Dover. They believed that the killer was never going to be found. Well, the press was a little bit too quick on that one. They had interviewed a lot of people that were around the area that night. And one chap called Hammond, he was a fire watchman. Not sure what that is, but we are at the beginning of World War II, so I'm guessing you had a lot of bombs and all that, so you probably had to have men patrolling to check that there was no fire anywhere. And although no one had broken into the building, some doors would have been left open for the fire watchman to come in, to check for fire. And when he gave his account of that night, there were a few discrepancies in terms of the timings. Some stuff didn't make sense. So he was invited back to the police station to, oh, there's another one here. I just spotted it. So again, if you want to go to Canterbury, it's this way. So we are going the right way. And he actually quite quickly confessed. He said that he did the deeds, which kind of surprised the police, because the police was convinced that it was not a simple burglary. They were convinced that the manager must have had enemies to have been that brutally attacked, But yeah, the poor man his lawyers tried to claim it on epilepsy. I mean, it's not because you got epilepsy that you suddenly murder people. So yeah, he was originally meant to be hanged, but then it was changed to penal servitude instead. Now, talking about the death penalty, we have a gentleman here that was hanged on the cliffs. There was a murder in I think it's 1856. It's a very sad story. He was from a soldier from the British Swiss Legion, whatever that is. He was from Belgrade originally, and he was courting a young girl from here in Dover. They had met a few times, and he was sending her a lot of letters, especially when he was working in a different city. And one day he came to visit her, and he requested to see his letters. So the young girl, her name was Caroline, she went and fetched the letters. And what she forgot is that when she showed him the batch of letter, there was one letter in the middle that was not from him. It was from another soldier in Woolwich, on the outskirts of London. So she quickly realized her mistake. She grabbed the letter and she put it into the fire. So he did not have time to read it. But that was enough for him to become ridiculously jealous. And he asked her to come for a walk the next day. She had already told him that she probably didn't want to see him anymore, but he invited her for a walk on the cliffs. And at the time you couldn't really go unchaperoned with a young man. Respectable ladies wouldn't do that. So the mother insisted that she took her little sister with her. So I think her name was Maria. So Caroline and Maria Back, that was their name. And so Caroline was 18, the little sister Maria was 16 only. They went on the cliffs and, he stabbed them both. He left their bodies there. He was caught. He was found in a pub not long after that. His mental health was probably not very good. He actually, when he realized he was caught, he actually stabbed himself, but he survived. Anyway, very, very sad story. It's not so much the murder that interests me. It's the execution. So he was hanged at Maidstone prison. At the time, the executions were still public. And at Maidstone prison, they had some kind of a space not quite on the roof, but a bit above eye level, so the audience would have the best view. It was about 16 feet high, to give you an idea. He was hanged, the audience left, and then the workmen that had to take down the scaffold, one of them had a fall with the big beam of wood, and he actually fell down 15 feet and lost his life. So that's quite sad as well. And that was one of the last public executions in Kent. Now, the very first, from 1868, the executions were no longer public. They were inside of the jails. Well, the very first in the country was also in Maidstone prison. But I'll tell you that at the end of the tour, because that's a murder that happened at the station. Now, before our next stop, I need to put a bit of, to explain a bit of background, really, historical background. Because the next story, well, we don't even know if it's true, but it happened through the Glorious Revolution. Now, I know the Glorious Revolution, it's a little bit complicated, so let me kind of set the context. 1688, James II is on the throne. To give you an idea, he's the little bro of Charles II. Charles II is the merry monarch, the one with all those mistresses, Protestant. But his little brother, James, was a Catholic. That was a bit of an issue. We couldn't have a Catholic on the throne at the time. Well, clearly we did with him, but we didn't want a Catholic on the throne in this country. But he was next in line, so there was a bit of an issue. He had, with his first wife, he had 2 children. He had Mary. She was married to William of Orange, her cousin. That was also a grandson of Charles I. And he had Anne. Anne, we spoke about Anne in a few of my tours. Anne, the monarch that became Queen Anne, and that might have been a lesbian. Those 2 girls were Protestant, so that was not really an issue to have James on the throne, because we knew that if he died, the crown would go to his daughters, and they were good Protestants. So we finally would get rid of the Catholics and no problems. But with his second wife, Catherine of Modena, I think her name was, one night, well, she was pregnant, and she gave birth to a little boy, James. Well, officially she gave birth. Now, conspiracy theories, they are not new. And at the time, a lot of people claimed that she never gave birth. That secretly that very night, some of the staff had brought a baby, already born elsewhere, in a warming pan. Now, a warming pan, let me show you what it is, because it's quite small. I'm not sure you could fit a baby in there. Before we had central heating and everything, you had those warming pans. They look like a frying pan, but they used to put warm coal inside, or anything warm, and you'll bring that into your bed sheets to warm up your bed before you went to bed. Well, for high society, it's not like if everyone had one at home. So the conspiracy theorists claimed that that baby was not actually the heir to the throne, that he was a fake baby. Well, a real baby, but not James's baby. Now, it's a bit far-fetched. I mean, I'm not sure you could fit a baby in there, but really that shows you that conspiracy theories, the royal conspiracies, are not new. That little James was then a Catholic. And he would have been the heir to the throne because he was a boy, so he would come before Mary and Anne. And that line, actually, it's the line of the Jacobites. You might have heard of the Jacobites. So that's people that believe that baby should have been next in line, and you can still follow the line for quite a while. So that's the context. And that's why some people wanted to invite William of Orange. So some people, known as the 7 Immortals, people from the nobility here, were actually inviting Mary, with her husband, William of Orange, to take the throne. So William of Orange was a Dutchman. So that's where we are with the historical context. And while we're here, above the tattoo artist, straight ahead, I've got a little apartment for you. Let me show you the pictures. It's a 4-bedroom maisonette. Oops, hold on. So how much would you pay? How much would you think we need to pay here in, sorry, I've made a mess here. Go away. Well, let's leave it. Oh no, I need to close it anyway. Hold on, sorry, I messed up. There we go. How much would you pay for this little apartment above the tattoo shop? So we're looking for a monthly rent. You know, you are a few minutes walk from the beach. See, I said it right, beach. How much would you pay monthly rent? 4 bedrooms, a full little maisonette. How much would you pay monthly? How much would you pay for a house in Dover? 2,500 says Natasha, 2,000 says Tish. 1,000 a month says Pauline. You are the closest so far, Pauline. Mitzi says 2,800. Rose says 1,800. Well, most of you are too high. 2,100 says Sarah. 3,000 says Rose. 2 fireplaces. Yeah, I mean, they're not working anymore, but yeah. Yes. Oh, Pam, I think you are the closest so far. 1,500. Let me show you the answer. Where are we? Ta-da! 1,300. So it is far cheaper than it would be in London. I mean, a full house in London with 4 bedrooms, they'll be like 3 or 4K. But yeah, obviously the demand is not the same. Let me get rid of that image. I hope I'm not gonna get everything stuck. I'm always worried with the images because sometimes we get stuck. Anyway, so the historical context of the Glorious Revolution, that was to tell you about the next murder story. Little disclaimer, this is Maison Dieu, this is it's not the town hall. Little disclaimer, there's absolutely no evidence that this story is true. It has been passed down like the Dover folklore, but we don't know for sure. Apparently, in Maison Dieu, I think this part of the building is a little bit more modern. I'll show you the other one, that's a Tudor building. In 1688, you had a gentleman that lived in there, Monsieur Papillon, or Mr. Papillon. It's such a French name. He was apparently a member of Parliament, and he had his wife, Madame Papillon, and his kids, and the wife was a little bit suspicious about her husband because he kept going out at all hours. He was trying to convince her to go into their countryside home, you know, away from Dover, and she suspected that he might have had a mistress. So they had a servant called Mary, and she decided to tell Mary to spy on him, to find out if indeed he was seeing anybody else. And little Mary, of course, agreed. So she kind of spied on him. And one night, she saw a cute little lady coming into the courtyard with a hoodie. She met with Mr. Papillon, and letterbox. Let's see what monarch. You can see George VI. Yeah, George VI. So that little blonde girl took the hoodie off. And then Mary actually recognized her. She was a lady that worked at the castle, apparently. And what Mary heard, she couldn't believe. The little lady told Mr. Papillon that they wanted to receive William of Orange. He was on his way to invade, and he was on his way to cross the Channel. He would arrive in Dover, and he had to be hidden somewhere for the time being. So they wanted him to stay in Maison Dieu. Now that would make sense. That would explain why Mr. Papillon wanted to send his family away, because at the time we were still under James I, so that would have been treason. And when Mary told Mrs. Papillon what she's heard, of course Mrs. Papillon then decided to go to the countryside home. So this is, I believe this is the original one, the original Maison Dieu, but I could be wrong, it could be the other way around. The other one next door, it's under scaffolding, but I've got a photo. So this is the second part of the Maison Dieu. Dieu is God, so it's basically house of God in French. Anyway, so yeah, Mrs. Papillon was like, oh, that's right, let's go in the countryside, we don't want to be traitors. So she grabbed her kids, she grabbed their stuff, and they were gonna leave on a horse carriage, but her bigger boy, had forgotten something. He wanted to go back inside the home to get what he forgot. So little Mary actually decided to go back in to get whatever it was he forgot. And then, as she got inside, she spotted soldiers in the garden. They had kidnapped the little blonde lady, you know, the one from the castle, the one with the hoodie. And she was chained and everything. And apparently, when they got into the building, they shot little Mary. That's all we know. So that probably would have been the soldiers of James II. Again, we don't know if that is true. But since that day, the ghost of little Mary apparently is haunting the building. Who knows? Anyway, let's go and take a look at what is now Dover College. So it is a school, but it used to be a priory. As we mentioned earlier, a lot of pilgrims used to come here on their way to Canterbury. So often they would have to sleep somewhere. So you could come and sleep in the priory here. Now, there was a massive issue in the priory. Not so long after the murder of Thomas Becket, you know, it was still the beginning when Kent became such a religious tourism destination in the Middle Ages. And apparently there were some French pirates that decided to ransack the priory. They attacked. Most of the monks had time to run away, apart from one called Thomas de la Halle. He was a bit too old, he couldn't run away, and he was killed by the French pirates. Now, they wanted to canonize him. They wanted to make him a saint, but apparently the prior, or whoever was in charge at Canterbury, they decided not to, because they didn't want to overshadow, of course, Thomas Becket. So poor Thomas de la Halle is not a saint. And today it's an amazing background for a college, really. The priory itself, sadly, a lot of the stones have been stolen because, you know, when Henry VIII broke up with the Catholic Church, a lot of the priories and the land that belonged to the church, they were confiscated. The monks were actually trying to fight to keep the priory here because it was such a place of great importance for people on their way to Canterbury. But sadly, that didn't work. So in the years after the Reformation, a lot of the buildings have been partially destroyed, or people stole some of the stones. And we still have quite a fair amount of them left today. But it's inside the college. You can go in. I read you can, but you have to. I think you have to sign the login book so they know you are inside. Anyway, we're heading towards the station, so that's time for our last murder of the night. It's in 1868. Do we remember what happened in 1868? You should know if you followed. If you followed a lot of my tours before. Let's see if you remember what happened in 1868. Let me know in the chat. There was a big change in terms of punishment and law enforcement in 1868. What do you think that is? Jack, no, that's 1888, Jack the Ripper. No. But if Jack the Ripper had been caught, what would we have done to him 20 years later? Yeah, it's too early for Jack. How would we have punished him if he had been caught? What would we have done to him? Oh, guys, you're going too far. 1868, that's when we stopped the public executions. After that, they happened inside of the prisons. Yes, Tish, yeah, you're getting closer, yeah, so exactly. So he would have been hanged, but he would have been hanged in the prison. So no more public executions with thousands of people watching, but people would be hanged indoors. And that's why I find the last murder interesting, because the young man, the culprit, his name was Thomas Wells, and he's the first person in this country that was hanged inside the prison. Well, you still had an audience of maybe 16 people, journalists, plus a few from the prison staff. And the only sign from outside the prison, so that's Maidstone, was a black flag. So that's how you knew that the execution was happening. But no more big parties on the street with thousands of people coming to get drunk and buy souvenirs and try to get a piece of the rope, or no, none of that anymore. So Thomas was a staff at the station here, Dover Priory. It is known as Dover Priory because we're right next to the Priory, of course. He was terrible at his job. His job was just to get on the trains, clean the trains, and that's it. But he actually jumped off of a train that was going. In his defense, some people believe that he developed some kind of mental health issues because he had been crushed between two trains at some point. But he used to. One day he came to work with a gun, and obviously his superior, Mr. Walshy, decided to confront him. He was like, "What are you doing with a gun? You know, either you apologize and you never do it again, or you're losing your job. I give you 2 minutes to 10 minutes. 10 minutes he had, way too long. I give you 10 minutes to think about it." Instead of thinking about it, the young man went to grab his gun that he had hidden in the station, and he came back and he shot Mr. Walsh. He killed him. Obviously, he was fairly quickly arrested because there were a few witnesses, and he was caught, he was jailed, and he was indeed hanged at Maidstone prison. But it was the very first execution that happened inside of the prison. People would still gather on the streets, but they would not see anything because that was happening behind closed doors. So that's why that case is interesting. Anyway, that's gonna be the end of the tour. Let me show you my face again. And let me know in the chat if you have any easy questions, because again, I'm not from here, as you can tell. I've done my homework, but I don't know everything. I've only been here a few hours. So any easy questions, let me know in the chat. If not, thank you very much for coming today. It's always a pleasure to have you on board. If any of you were gonna drop me a little tip on PayPal or buy me a coffee, or straight on YouTube. That's very, very much appreciated. Thank you so much for coming. And if any of you were completely new to me, hope I got you hooked. Hope you'll click on the little subscribe button to be able to make sure you don't miss my next live. Oh, thanks ever so much, Linda. Thanks, Pauline. Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Cool. If you want to see a bit more of me, the next one is Bognor. So we're going on the seaside again. We're going to Bognor Regis on the 5th of July, I think it is. Thank you so much, Diane. Thank you very much. I'm very tanned. Well, it's sunny, Sarah. It's sunny in London now. It's been about a week that it feels like summer. So yeah, my face might be tanned. My legs not so much, but yeah. And finally, I'm going to the beach on Thursday. I've got 2 days off this week. It's probably my last days off until September, but I'm gonna be going down to Southern Sea. No tours, but I'll be checking the signal and checking the road for a future tour, maybe in September there, because there also are quite a few murders in Southern Sea. So finally, I'll go for my first swim of the year. Well, first swim of the year in the UK. Cool. Thank you, guys. I don't see any more questions, so hopefully I'll see some of you in Bognor. And I might do one more before that. I'll see if I find time. We need to roll the dice on the Monopoly board again to have our next Monopoly location anyway. Have a great evening, a great morning, whatever time it is for you. And I'm gonna go and check into my hostel because I think I need to get there in the next hour. So see you later. Bye bye. Have a good one.